Hello everyone, welcome to Samiksha Academy. Let's read today's newspaper. See here, as you all know, yesterday we celebrated 76th Republic Day. So on this eve, as you already know, uh, Indonesian president was invited for this event. I think you know here Prabowo Subianto, right? He attended as the chief guest for that particular event. See here the statement given by him. I have Indian DNA, President of Indonesia Banquet of Republic Day event, right? Just a headline. And the most important one here is this one. These two are important. One is about this. Environment Ministry panel clears new Sikkim dam despite its own concerns. As you all know, in last year, see here, October 2023, last before a year, right? So there was a glacial lake outburst, what we used to call that as the GLOF, glacial lake outburst flood, right? So that incident happened in Sikkim, right? Despite that, now environmental ministry cleared this Sikkim dam, understood. So in this context, with respect to dams of the country, this particular information is important. So that's the reason I highlighted some key points here. So the key issue here is the GLOF, glacial lake outburst flood, right? What exactly the major issue here? The environment ministry's panel, it cleared without fresh public hearing. What exactly that mean? You have to take public opinion, especially we have this concept called as environmental impact assessment. So for any environmental project the government takes up, right? It has to conduct the environmental impact assessment. For that public hearing is must. But here the point they expressed is as this is not a new dam we are planning for, that's why we haven't gone for this public hearing. So that is mentioned as a cause of concern, right? But here in the context of prelims, what can be important? See here, Lohang Glacial Lake, understood. So there the outburst took place. So here we need to identify these keywords. So along with that, if you see the next one, MSME, center may review import barriers that protect big players. What is most important thing here is MSMEs. So this MSME as a division, it is not only important in the context of prelims, but also in the context of mains especially. You know, even in general, if you see the role of MSME to the whole industry, if you see here, 30% to GDP, close to 50% with respect to exports, right? Close to 60% with respect to employment. So that's the potential of MSME sector. So that's why in this context, whenever we come across any kind of headlines with respect to this particular sector, we need to pay attention to that. Next, as a continuation, see this particular issue we already discussed few days back. Bastar man fights to keep promise of father Christian burial in his village, right? So today the crucial hearing of Supreme Court we have to see. So this is just an update of the issue that we are seeing from past few days. See, this is about that particular lake, right? As you all know, in the 2023 October incident, 40 people killed, right? Because of the burst of this Chungtang dam, right? Keywords are important here. But despite that, after taking approval from the Central Water Commission, a concrete gravity dam, right? A gravity dam is being planned again on this particular, like where the outburst took place, right? By whom? By a Greenco company, Greenco group, initially promoted by the Sikkim government, but right now most of the stake is being held by this particular company. It's an Andhra based company, right? What is the challenge here? The hurriness of the project without going for fresh public hearing, right? So without going for proper environmental impact assessment, why there should be a hurry in constructing this dam? So that's the issue with respect to this particular dam, right? Again, as we said, with respect to MSMEs, okay. So all the sectors, be it steel, chemicals, textile, solar, copper, right? Here they have given some particular sectors. So overall, what is the issue here? We need to understand. If we go for some kind of what you call import restrictions should actually benefit the domestic manufacturers. because if you are putting more tariffs on imports, it is especially to protect the domestic manufacturers. But the problem what the MSMEs expressed here, that though the government has come up with restrictions, but these restrictions mostly benefited the big industrial players than the small industrial players. So that's why in the given in this year's budget, they want some kind of revision of the policies, because as we said, MSMEs plays very crucial role for the development of the industry. Here we should consider this when we are framing a policy for the upcoming budget. So in that context, we have to understand that. Next, so this is with respect to that Sweden's ambassador. Just remember, just try to get the keyword here. Delhi has the best of both hyper modern and traditional. So that means here in India we have, like on one side we have advanced technologies, on the other side we are also balancing the tradition. So that's what he mentioned. Just that is important. So this is just about the Republic Day parade. Next, this is mostly about that Delhi elections, the Feb 5th elections of Delhi, right? So this again is a continuation, as you all know. That day also, few days back also discussed about this. So once again, India is planning to resume talks with China, especially after the 2020 standoff, right? Recently, we have seen an agreement between India and China with respect to disengagement along the Ladakh border, Depsang and Demchok Valley in Ladakh. We discussed that, right? Now we are planning for this disengagement, like what we call that as the de-escalation and de-induction. Already disengagement happened. Disengagement means we both agreed for not having any kind of future conflicts. At least we agreed for that. Now we are planning for disengagement, so that to reduce the intensity, eventually reducing the number of troops. So for that, as we already discussed, initially NSA level talks took place. Later, our Prime Minister and Xi Jinping, they both met on the sidelines of BRICS summit that happened in Kazan in Russia, right? Now our Foreign Secretary level talks are happening, especially to resume talks with respect to Kailash Manasarovar, right? Like allowing Indians to visit the Manasarovar, right? The place where in Tibet especially. Along with that, trade along Nathula Pass, right? To resume direct people to people contacts. In simple terms here, political, economic and people to people domains, we want to establish the context, we want to resume the context. So that's what here we need to understand in the context of India-China relations. So that is about this particular issue. Next, just a headline, Nitish Kumar's son joining politics. So they put the question mark here. That means, so something is being cooked there. We just need to wait and see. Next, say this is important. Just a few days back we discussed. I think on Friday we discussed about this Vice President's statement with respect to why should there be a whip, right, in political parties. Because this whip eventually curtailing the freedom of expression of the legislature and eventually leading to a servility. That means dependency. So in simple terms, it is controlling the freedom of speech and expression of the legislature. So that's what he mentioned, right? As you all know, under this anti-defection law, right? If any during the time of voting, if any party, if any candidate belongs to that particular party violates the whip, it eventually leads to his or her disqualification. Okay. So I think in this context here, let's have a quick understanding of this whip system. Originated where? In England, right? In England, especially during the time of this hunting. So one member, right, will be acting as a whipper. So what is the role of the whipper, whose job was to bring stray hounds back into the pack? So that means when the hounds, when the dogs or the wolves, when they go for the hunting, understood? So whenever, if anyone tries to like changes the direction, so the purpose of this person is to bring them back, so to set them on track. So in simple terms, to have a discipline, to set the discipline. So this eventually we can see in the world, like during the writings of Edmund Burke, right, English politician and philosopher. So during that time, the ministers under the king used to play this role, this whip role. So eventually when we frame the constitution, eventually it became part of the party system, right? So in general, there is a lot of support for this system. Why? Because it See, it strengthens a kind of regulation, it sets a kind of discipline within the legislative setup. So that's what, even if you see the former Lok Sabha Speaker Sumitra Mahajan, right, or be it former election commissioners, most of them they supported this system. Usually, if you see, there are three types of whips: one line whip, two line whip, and three line whip. So one line whip means it is just a kind of caution. Two line whip means, see here I just mentioned, directing members to vote. It is a three line whip, the third one. So that is more important, but that means under the whip there will be three lines like this. So under each sentence there will be three lines. They will be mentioning that you must present. So if anyone violates this three line whip, it eventually leads to disqualification. Understood that? So this, though in this anti-defection law that came in the year 1985, there we officially incorporated this whip system, but way back in 1950s, this is what they mentioned here in the All India Whips Conference, the first such conference that took place in Indore. They itself they discussed about this particular system, like the kind of rationalization that needs for this system. So as of now, so do we really need whip? Yes, we need, but most of the people suggest that let us keep it only for some most important decisions. For example, like during the time of no confidence motion. So there the whole what you call that, the existence of the government comes into question, because if all the members of the party, if they do not present, then government may collapse. So during only for those kind of events we should keep the whip system, but for rest of the bills we should give some kind of freedom for the legislatures to decide, rather than every time, okay, we will be issuing a whip, you all should fall in line. So that we shouldn't be there. That's what some people will give the suggestions. So that's about this particular whip system. Next, again, see, these two are important. One is about the Jim Corbett. So where Jim Corbett is there, it is in Uttarakhand. So in the Jim Corbett Tiger Reserve, women are more vulnerable. The reason being most men got migrated to somewhere else. So it's the women, whenever if any kind of man-animal conflict happens, who are bearing the brunt, right? So that is about the headline. Next, again, see this one. Pollution control boards, only 167 posts got filled out of the total 2228. So out of close to 2228 posts, only 167 posts got filled, only that in 14 boards. It indicates what? So the pollution control board, right, if it need to really function properly, it needs the support of human resources. So here the issue is with respect to human resources. You can use this information in GS paper 3, environment especially. If you get any question with respect to environmental regulation, with respect to pollution, this information can be used. Even in general also you can just see, because pollution control boards play very crucial role with respect to strengthening environmental regulation. So if that is not happening, if the vacancies are not getting filled, from where they can do this regulation? So that's what we should understand. And again, see here one more important thing, this Guillain-Barré syndrome. What is Guillain-Barré syndrome? It's a neurological disorder, right? Initially it will be weakening your muscles, especially hands and legs, eventually leads to paralysis. So this right now, we have seen Guillain-Barré syndrome case in Pune. People are saying it might be due to some kind of contamination. So immediately it has to be verified, right? So this is, you just need to understand, it can be any kind of bacterial or virus related infection, it can happen, this Guillain-Barré syndrome. Next, see this one, I will be taking a screenshot of this clip, I will be sharing in our Telegram channel. Whenever you come across these kind of initiatives, because it's a live event, you can attend. It would be, it can be good for you in terms of understanding the international relations, right? I will be sharing the QR code, right? If any one of you interested, you can attend the live event of this one. You just need to register yourself and you can attend through online, because as the former US envoy is talking about here, so you can attend that. See this one. So this is with respect to India and Indonesia relations. As you all know, India and ASEAN countries, Indonesia is one of the founding members of the ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations, right? And ASEAN is very much important for India in terms of trade. Okay. In terms of even to some extent regulating China, we need ASEAN. So in that context, relationship with Indonesia is very much crucial. So that's what here with respect to commercial shipping, with respect to UNCLOS, especially the Strait of Malacca. There, the role of Indonesia is very crucial. So that's why in this context, having a relationship with Indonesia, to be specific, and ASEAN in general is very much important. So in that context, the recent attending of Indonesian president for 76th Republic Day celebrations is very much crucial for us. Understood? So that's what here we can just understand from this article. The whole Bonhomie here. See this one, Nehru Memorial Museum and Library, it got renamed as Prime Minister's Memorial and Museum. Just an update, just have a look at that. So there we will be knowing about all the about all our prime ministers till now, their contributions. That's the museum of the museum means, as I think you all know. So this is the 76th Republic Day event. You can just understand this, just to glance it. So this is a day in Republic. So it's here the editorial's major intention is that a Republic Day is not just about winners or losers. It is about understanding the day-to-day problems of the people and eventually implementing the ideals of the Constitution, that is justice, liberty, equality, fraternity. Understood that? So this particular one, it is mostly about that the recent Hamas and Israeli truce deal, right? So as though his major argument is the ceasefire is temporary reprieve. That means it will give only temporary relief. The actual relief, if it has to come, it has to come in the form of full statehood to Palestine. So that's what he mentions here. The main obstacle to lasting peace remains Israel's right-wing parties, especially for all these people. They are right now not allowing a full statehood to Palestine. Right, this is still pending, so that has to happen. That's what the argument is. Rest all you can just glance it. You can see here this one we already discussed, unseeing the pain of others. This is especially with respect to Trump's calling for only two genders. So he said in his recent presidential order he just recognized only two genders, male and female. So it actually eventually questions diversity and equity. That's what most of the people are arguing. That's what this article also says. So this one is with respect to let's overhaul the tax system. So here the major point is recently government of India, right, it came up with this retrospective taxation system, especially within the GST. With respect to these warehouses, you know what is the retrospective taxation, right? Retrospective means when we come up with the law, we will be taxing even the earlier ones. Suppose for example, last few things also we will be taxing now. Understood? So the policy on which the current government was actually against, when earlier UPA government came up with this in this Vodafone case, right, to come for this retrospective taxation, the current government, especially under the former Prime Minister Arun Jaitley, former Finance Minister Arun Jaitley, he was against it. But the current government once again it came up with this retrospective taxation with respect to some of the provisions within GST. So that is not fair. That's what the argument is. So we need to overhaul the system. You can just remember the keyword retrospective, that is enough. Again, see this one, CIA says COVID-19 likely came from a lab. So the China says conspiracy. So once again, as you all know, still the evidence is inconclusive, but the fight is still going on with respect to COVID-19. That's what we can understand from this. Again, see this one, though right now it looks small, this is important. For Alexander Lukashenko, right? The last, people used to call him the last dictator of Europe, right? Belarus president. Way back in 1994, he took oath as the president. Still he is continuing. People will say he is the close ally of USSR, Soviet Union, right? So recently also he allowed his land to be used by Russia to deal with Ukraine. During the time of Ukraine war, he will be considered as the Russian ally, right? So in this context here we have to understand what is most important is the map pointing, especially in the context of prelims. Whenever this kind of things comes, immediately go to map pointing and identify the surrounding countries, right? Surrounding countries of Belarus, and if there is any sea nearby, lightly try to find out where is the sea nearby that. So that is important here. So in that context this particular information is important. Next, again, as you all know, this is with respect to after he imposed martial law. Right now, the president of South Korea, he got arrested. Right now, day by day, like restrictions on him getting like it is getting increased. So this is what we can understand. Just an update. And the most interesting thing is this one: Bangladesh envoy announces direct flight between Bangladesh and Pakistan. So it's an interesting fact with respect to, because of the recent changes that's happening in Bangladesh. So in that context, I feel this is important for us as an update. See this one again, this 70 killing drone attack in Sudan hospital, WHO chief. What is important here is, suppose for example here the city El Fasher. These keywords are important. Sometimes in prelims these keywords they will be asking, right? Just importance in Sudan, just to get an update. Those keywords you just need to remember. Once again, the reason being here, right? The eruption of civil war. For long, Sudan is facing the challenges of civil war. Not only Sudan, we have some portions of Africa still they are under the civil war, be it Congo, right? Somalia. So next, see this one. No India direct flight, Singapore, Vietnam, Dhaka gain connecting hubs. So this is in the context of the recent relationship, right? So in this context, to have this, to further strengthen the relationship, we once again planning for this direct flights between India and China, right? After this 2020 border standoff, we stopped the direct flights. So because of the connecting flights, they are benefiting more. So in this context, just an idea they just mentioned here. If we have a direct flight, it will be definitely helping the passengers. It will reduce the cost rather than going for the connecting flights. Thereby further improves the business operations. This is what we can understand from this. Again, see the next one. Need to focus on labor laws, land and cities, speed up overburden judicial system. Every day we are seeing one column here on the right side with respect to budget. So every day everyone will come and give their viewpoint. Someone comes and says that we need to reduce the overburden judicial system, right? We need to improve the land acquisition proper level land acquisition policies. We need to create sustained cities. We need to smoothen the labor policies, right? Someone comes and says that we need to strengthen the MSME sector. Here we just need to understand everyone will have their own viewpoint, but there are some areas we need to pay attention. For example, judiciary, as we discussed few days back, around 5 crore cases are still pending, right? Judicial vacancies, number of judges to a population, right, that need to be increased. So this is what we can understand from this, right? This is next one with respect to railway budget. Amrit Bharat 2.1 train to Kashmir Kavach. As you all know, within few days the government will be going for the upcoming budget, right? The finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman, she will be announcing the budget now. So in that context, as we have though we don't have any separate railway budget right now, right, but we have a separate allocation for railways. So in that context, where the focus can be, one is with respect to technology, that is Kavach. One is with respect to strategic investment, that is train to Kashmir. Recently also we discussed, right? Now the government is planning to finish the remaining pending project to connect Jammu and Kashmir. Understood? That we also discussed. Commissioner of Railway Safety, right? They already gave approval for that. And again this Amrit Bharat, right? It is to further improve the sleeper and general class berths. To some extent you can say facilities. So that's what Amrit Bharat is all about. So that is about this railway budget. Next, see this one, easing oil prices, what it meant for India, especially US investors offers to acquire. So in simple terms, here as we said, drill baby drill, that's what Trump said. So they will be planning more for hydrocarbons. In that context, what is important is these crude oil. I think this Brent crude, it is having the sweet and less sulfur content. It will be taken as one of the measures with respect to measuring the prices for each barrel. So this is important. These kind of terms are important in the context of prelims. Understood that? Next, again see this one. From the past few weeks, we are discussing about it, especially after Trump won the elections. We are discussing about is Greenland. Now, Americans, especially under the Trump, they actually wants to take control of Greenland. But though right now it is under the control of the Danish people, Denmark, right? Denmark is nowhere interested to hand over Greenland to America, but America is saying that if you don't hand over properly, we may use the force. But why Trump wants Greenland? The core points here, one most important thing is, though they are fighting since 1940s, in 1941, for the first time, USA sent its forces, especially to control the aggression of Germany. Right, in 1946 they went with a proposal to take control of Greenland, but that time Denmark did not agree for that. But overall right now also they are trying. But why it is important? The reason being, see here, out of 34 classified rare earth metals, more than 23 of them are having their presence in Greenland. Point number one. Point number two, right now if there happens to be any climate change activity, right, if Arctic oceans gets open for trade, Greenland is very important. Right now for most of the rare earth metals, right, majority of it right now having its presence in China. If Greenland comes under control of US, they will be benefiting out of it. Why? These rare earth metals right now having lot of their utility, not only in the semiconductor industry but also for most of the current equipment. Right, in all the in the current emerging technologies, we are using these rare earth metals. For example, I highlighted some of them here. See, like here I mentioned about China. Right, here most, if you see here, dysprosium, right, neodymium, these all are the rare earth metals. So these metals having their lot of utility for this. And again, right now China also increased its presence. Increased Chinese presence is having a concern for US, right? Presence of rare earth metals, shipping routes. So these things making USA right now to showcase its interest in Greenland. So that's the issue right now happening between Denmark and US with respect to Greenland. This is what we need to understand. Next important one is, see this one, tree Aadhar. So recently J&K government is planning to issue tree Aadhar for the chinar trees. So this chinar leaves, right, and the chinar wood is very much famous, right, at the local level. Though because of the reduced number of trees, now the government is planning for geotagging of all chinar trees, including private sector, including private properties. Even if the tree is having its presence in the private property, still without government permission they cannot cut the trees. Understood? So right now estimating of 32 to 33,000 of chinar trees. For that already they said around 29,000 trees they already did the geotagging. Okay, so this is what we should understand about this. Next, this we already discussed, this birthright citizenship. The 14th amendment of the US Constitution guaranteed birthright citizenship to Americans. What is birthright citizenship? Whoever individual, right, like gave birth to a child, the child by default will become US citizen. Understood that? Just being the born on the soil of US, what you call this a jus solis, right? As if you compare this with India, in India also earlier we used to have birthright citizenship, especially after the coming up of the Citizenship Act of 1955, right? Anyone born in India on or after, right, after independence, they will be given the citizenship. But however, these rules we amended. Suppose for example, if you see the 1986, one of the parents must be of Indian origin. One of the parents must be Indian citizen. Eventually in 2003 we further amended, the other person must not be an illegal migrant. That means now just because if any individual gave birth to a child, that child cannot become Indian citizen. To be an Indian citizen, you must not, one of the parents must not be an illegal migrant, one of the parents must be an Indian citizen, right? So that's why we don't have any birthright citizenship right now. The individual must be of Indian citizen, then only the upcoming ones can can avail the Indian citizenship. That means the any child. So this is what we can understand from this. So next one, so this is with respect to Arvind Panagare. He just recently in this Express ID section, he talked about Nehru's model was emphasis on heavy industry. You cannot be labor abundant and capital scarce. So the so here the major thing is like, because if you invested heavily on the heavy industries, so but heavy industries it need highly skilled people, but in the labor and but most of the labor you can utilize in the small scale industries. Small scale industries provide more employment. That if you refine, things could have been different. That's what Parangari argues, right? So if you take the case of China in 1970s, when it's opened its economy, it heavily focused on the MSME sectors. Right now, most of the growth in China is actually in the MSME sector. Most of the exports are coming from MSME sector. For that matter, even in India, most of the exports are from MSME sector. Understood that? So yeah, we need heavy industries, there is no doubt. Along with that, we should also pay attention to the MSME sector. That's what we can understand from that. In one of your interest, you can read the whole interview, but I feel just the crux is enough for us. Next is about sports. So Senate's Melbourne supremacy. John, just remember the names at least. Next, that's it for the day. All right, thank you.